Something really interesting has been happening in education across India. It's this quiet but growing shift where more and more families are making a conscious choice to step away from the traditional school system. So what's really driving this, and what are they looking for instead? Let's dive in. For a lot of families, the light bulb moment really came during the pandemic. Being at home with their kids, seeing them learn up close, sparked this powerful thought, wait a minute, maybe school isn't the only way to learn. And once that idea takes root, well, it's pretty hard to ignore. It really opened the door to questioning everything.
Now let's be clear, we're not talking about impulsive decisions here. This is a very deliberate move by families who are feeling this deep, growing mismatch between what the conventional school system offers and what they feel their child truly needs to thrive.
So let's really unpack the reasons behind this shift. First, we're going to look at this growing realization, this collective awakening, really, that's happening among parents about what school has become and its real-world impact.
And let's start with the thing that hits closest to home for any parent, the direct emotional and mental toll that the current system is taking on kids. We're calling it the pressure cooker effect.
So what does that pressure cooker actually look like day to day? Well, picture this, a full day at school, immediately followed by hours of homework. And then it's off to tuition classes for a second shift of studying. It's just this relentless grind of tests that are all about memorizing facts, not actually understanding them. Parents are literally watching childhood get lost in this packed, unforgiving schedule.
And all that academic pressure, it has very real emotional consequences. We're talking about kids getting so overwhelmed they just emotionally shut down. We're seeing rising anxiety, a crippling fear of failure, and burnout in children as young as 9 or 10 years old. For so many parents, their child's mental well-being has become the #1 priority, and it's simply non-negotiable.
And this quote it gets right to the heart of the frustration, doesn't it? Learning for marks, not meaning. It perfectly captures that feeling that the entire purpose of education has gotten lost somewhere along the way. That spark of genuine curiosity is being put out in the race for grades, and parents are really starting to push back.
But it's not just about the pressure on the child. The frustration also comes from looking at the system itself and seeing that it feels totally out of sync with what kids actually need today.
Okay, this slide is so telling. It highlights this huge gap between the buzzwords schools use in their brochures and what parents see happening every single day. The school promises experiential learning, but the reality is just copying worksheets. They talk about project work, but it ends up being a decorative assignment that parents have to finish. This kind of disconnect just completely erodes trust.
And all this leads to a pretty critical question that a lot of parents are asking themselves. If the real, effective teaching is happening at the tuition center after school, then what exactly is the school for? It's a question that exposes a kind of redundancy in the system that's just becoming impossible to ignore.
The critique gets even broader when you look at the system's one-size-fits-all model. I mean, this factory line approach, it just doesn't work for so many kids. The hands-on learners, the creative thinkers, the neurodivergent children. In huge classrooms, individual kids just get lost in the crowd. And when you combine that rigidity with a growing lack of trust in school management, well, you've got the perfect recipe for an exodus.
But here's a really crucial point. This movement isn't just a reaction against the old system. It's not just about running away from something. It's a proactive, really hopeful search for something better, a new way of thinking about education that lines up with modern family values.
So, what does this something better look like? Well, instead of those rigid routines, families want flexibility. They want an education that values real-life skills, the arts, and sports just as much as it values academics. They want their kids to connect with nature, to grow up with empathy, and ultimately, they want an environment that nourishes the heart, not just the brain.
So when you bring it all together, the push away from the old system and the pull towards this new vision, it all converges on one single, really powerful idea.
And that idea is what we can call a truly human-centered education. It's an approach that values the whole child. It's about respecting their individuality, fiercely protecting their mental well-being, encouraging their natural curiosity, and building skills for life, not just for an exam. And maybe most important of all, it's about protecting the actual joy of being a kid.
Which leaves us with this final, powerful question that really wraps this whole debate up. For generations, the assumption has been that the child has to adapt, to bend and shape themselves to fit the system. But the families we're talking about are flipping that script entirely.
They are now demanding a system that is flexible and humane enough to adapt and fit the child. And that simple change in perspective, well, that's what's fueling a quiet revolution in education.